What's up, guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we will explore two disturbing stories posted by Reddit users. So without any further ado, let's jump straight into the first story. My brother left to hike the Appalachian Mountains. What came back isn't him. My brother, Kevin, not his real name, I'm trying to keep some anonymity, has always been outdoorsy. Growing up, he would wander off into the woods behind my parents' property and stay out there for hours. He said that being out in nature brought him a lot of peace. A few months ago, things kind of spiraled for him. He lost his girlfriend, his job, and his apartment within 6 weeks. He ended up moving back home with me and my parents to try and get back on his feet. It was hard to see him like that. I mean, he was never someone I would describe as an eternal optimist, but that little spark he always had was gone. This past spring, I found him sitting at the kitchen table in the middle of the night. He was picking apart a piece of cold pizza, and it was the first time I'd seen him almost eat something in days. I told him maybe he should get back out into nature, take some hikes, or maybe do a solo camping weekend. I said that I had noticed he had seemed down lately, and maybe being out in the world could help me get back to himself. In the moment, I wasn't sure if he was really hearing me, but he took a bite of pizza, squeezed my hand, said he loved me, and went back to his bedroom. The next morning, he announced to my parents he was going to hike the Appalachian Trail. My mom was hesitant, but Kevin told her that he knew enough about himself to know that sitting at home in his room was causing more stress than if he could go out and just be in the place that made him feel most at ease. My dad just said that as long as Kev checked in every few days or so, he didn't see a problem with it. My dad pointed out that it wasn't like Kevin didn't have the experience. He was a Boy Scout turned Eagle Scout turned camping enthusiast. People do that hike all the time, Kathleen. If it were dangerous, no one would be bragging about it. I remember him saying those words exactly. I don't know why they stuck in my head the way they did, but maybe it was the way Kevin seemed to brighten up a little bit after my dad gave his blessing in a sort of roundabout way. The next 2 weeks were spent helping my brother pack what he would need, registering his hike, and buying a plane ticket to Georgia, where he would start his trip. The night he left, our mom was a mess. She kept fussing over him as if he wasn't a full-grown man. She kept asking him if he had everything he needed, and he just kept assuring her he did and would check in with us once he got a trailhead. Looking back now, he seemed genuinely excited. If I had known what would happen, I would never let him leave. My brother called like he said he would, just as he was beginning his trip. He even sent a photo in our family group chat that showed him up against a backdrop of purple blue mountains and lush greenery. He had a thumbs up and his signature slightly off-center smirk. He wrote, "Finally made it. Love you guys. Talk when I get better reception." Over the next few days, Kevin would send a photo or video, usually of his surroundings, but occasionally he would send a selfie with the caption "Proof of Life." But as the days wore on, we stopped getting updates as frequently. What was a text at least once a day became a text once every 3 or 4 days. My dad blamed it on spotty cell reception, which made sense, and it wasn't as if the messages stopped altogether, and from what I could piece together from his photos and short text bursts, he was making good time. It was around a month and a half into his trip when we realized it had been almost 2 weeks without any communication from Kevin. We called the authorities, we gave them all the information that we had, but based on what we knew, it was hard to say he was even missing. As far as the police were concerned, he had gone off-grid with the intent of going off-grid. Sending out search and rescue would cost thousands of dollars, and it could be a waste of resources, especially if there was someone else who needed it. They said they would put a notice out to the ridge runners, and if they saw Kevin, they were told to tell him to contact us. My mom was furious, but I couldn't necessarily blame the cops for their response. We had no evidence to support that Kev was anything but content out in the wilderness. A few days later, a text came through, just a photo of sunset, and the words, "Everything is okay here." That began the new normal of communication with my brother. There would be long stretches of time where we would hear nothing, just long enough for my mother to start panicking, and then we would get a blurry photo and a generic caption like, "Look what I saw today," or "Wish you were here." One night, while going through the photos he had sent, I realized in the background of every shot from before we had called the police was a black smudge. It was too blurry to properly make it out, and it didn't seem to be an animal or something caught moving in the camera lens. But after the first photo he had sent after we thought he was missing, the smudge was gone. Kevin came home earlier than expected. He also hadn't told anyone his plans. One night during dinner, there was a loud, sharp knock at the door. My dad got up to answer it, and there was Kevin. His hair was long and stringy. He had grown a patchy beard over his cheeks and jaw. His lips were dry and cracked, and his gums were coated in a dried layer of blood. He was rail thin. He had lost at least 30 pounds, and he wasn't a large man to begin with. His clothes were filthy, caked in mud and debris, and his shorts looked like they had been worn thin at the sole. My mother made a sound almost like a yelp and rushed over to him. The smell coming off him made me gag. It smelled like he had smeared rotting meat under his armpits. My dad just looked at him in shock. When he finally spoke, his voice was dry and raspy, as if he hadn't used it in weeks. "Mom." That was all he could say before he practically collapsed in her arms. I won't bore you guys with everything that happened after that. There was a lot of hugging, some tears, and then a very, very long shower, but something didn't feel right. Kev went to bed pretty much immediately after. He barely even looked at us. The next morning, he ate breakfast with a ferocity that made my skin crawl. He was gulping down huge mouthfuls of food, barely stopping to breath. My mom just kept piling his plate with bacon, eggs, and toast. He stopped only after he had consumed a whole loaf of bread, 2 packages of bacon, and nearly 2 dozen eggs. I tried to ask him about the trip, tried to get him to say anything at all really, but all I got were grunts and ahs before he lumbered back off to his bedroom. The next few days were more of the same. Kev eating an insane amount of food, sleeping for hours, and then mumbling his way through conversations. It took about a week for him to start communicating like a human being again, but even then it was stilted, awkward, unnatural. He's been home for almost a month now, and something isn't right. His voice, it changed somehow. It's still his voice, but it's like there's a second voice buried underneath it, like someone is trying to harmonize while he speaks. He lumbers around the house, like his knees are locked in place, but he refuses to go to the doctors. The worst part is the smell. It still won't go away. No matter how often or how long he showers, he still reeks like death. I could have maybe ignored all of this, maybe blame it on being isolated in the woods for weeks. But after what happened tonight, I couldn't sleep. That feeling of fear in my stomach I felt ever since he's been back hasn't gone away, and honestly, it keeps me up most nights. I was trying to will myself to sleep when I heard the back door creak open. I crept out of my bedroom and down the hall. From my viewpoint, I could see into the kitchen through the window, into the backyard. I saw my brother perched on his hands and knees. He was twitching wildly, like every muscle in his neck and head were spasming. He widened his stance and thrashed his head towards the ground and out of my line of sight. I was worried that maybe he was having some kind of seizure, so I ran out to check on him, and that when I saw it. His head was buried deep into the carcass of one of our neighbor's cats. He was chomping down on its tiny body, blood oozing out between the gaps in his teeth. The thing had clearly been dead for at least a day or so. Its body bloated and its eyes were dull and hazy. Kevin reached inside the cat's body and started to strip off pieces of muscle and tendon, slurping them up the same way he had been eating our mother's cooking. Pressing his thumb into the thing's skull, he popped out one of its eyes and tossed it back like a grape. I ran back into the house and locked the door behind me. I was about to run back to my bedroom when that smell hit me, that horrible death stench that had been wafting around my brother. I opened the door to his room and inched a few feet inside. Wrapped in his bedding were the decaying bodies of 20 or so animals. Rabbits, mice, squirrels. I tried to run to my parents' room to wake them up to tell that we needed a call. Someone? As I turned around, I saw Kevin in the kitchen window, his body drenched in blood. He was eyeing me through the glass, his head tilted at an angle that shouldn't be possible. The vertebrae in his neck strained underneath his skin. He lunged at the window, and I screamed. My parents woke up then. They found me in the hallway, sobbing, sweating, shaking with fear. I told them what I saw, and my dad rushed outside to try and I don't know exactly what he was trying to do, but it didn't matter, my brother was gone. We called the police, and they said it sounded like my brother had had some sort of mental crisis. Maybe he had picked up some kind of parasite in the woods that was impacting his brain chemistry. I know they're wrong though. Whatever that thing is, it is not my brother. My brother left for the Appalachian Trail and never came back. I think whatever that black smudge was in those photos was something that hunted him, and I think it was successful. Whatever that thing was killed my brother, and somehow his body came back home. My brother disappeared, but I'm terrified he will come back. There's something very wrong about the woman under the bridge. When I moved to Philly for work, I knew the area wasn't great. Not run down enough to scare me off as a 6'2" guy who used to work security, but not the kind of place you wander around at night alone either, whoever you were. My walk to work took me under a bridge every morning, and that's where I first saw her. She sat on a flattened piece of cardboard near one of the pillars, head lowered, hood pulled up. A "please spare change for food" sign scrawled in pencil was propped up beside her. At first I didn't think much of it until I looked again. She had no legs. Not covered or hidden, just no legs. There were stumps above where her knees should have been. I paused and took a closer look. She couldn't have been older than her mid-20s, and that part stuck with me more than anything. Her face was grimy and she had mangled, unkempt blonde hair, but I could tell. You expect to see older people out there, but not someone who still looked like they should have been in college. I reached into my wallet and dropped a few bills into the cup beside her. She didn't speak, she just lowered her head slightly. Everyone else walked past. The next time I saw her was the morning after the weekend, in the same spot, sitting in the same position. This time when I gave her money, she looked up at me. Her eyes were wide with something that looked like panicked desperation. I hesitated. "You okay?" I asked. No response. I assumed she was pleading for more cash, so that's what I gave her. But that wide-eyed look still persisted as I slowly walked away. Later that day, I got off work early and passed her again around midday, and this time she was looking down as if trying to be invisible. It stuck with me for a while. The next morning, when I stopped again, she did something different. As I handed her money, she slipped something into my hand. A small folded piece of paper, gray and worn, like it had been through it. I opened it while walking. The writing was in messy pencil scribbles, and it wasn't English. I looked over it curiously and put it back in my pocket, assuming it was a thank you note or something. During my work break, I pulled out the note again and glanced at it curiously, wondering what it said. An idea occurred to me. I downloaded a translation app and took a photo. Then I uploaded it to the app, which detected the language, Russian. A few seconds later, the English translation came back. "Do not give me money. Man is watching from other side. He see where you keep wallet. He wait for you when you alone. You make me do this." I blinked and read it again. A cold chill ran through me. I didn't take that route home, and when I got back, I called the police. Told them everything. The woman, the note, the warning. The voice on the other end barely reacted, sounding like it was just another Tuesday. Just said they'd get someone to check it out. Didn't ask for the note or any further details. No follow-up questions, no urgency, nothing. I hung up with no real optimism that they'd take any action. 2 days later, I went back early in the morning just to check if anything had changed. The streets were still dark, completely empty at that hour. I had a fake wallet in my pocket and my pistol just in case, but I wasn't expecting to use it. I arrived hoping to see the area cornered off or at least some sign that the authorities had been there, but there was none at all. And she wasn't there. The spot under the bridge was empty. The cardboard and the sign were gone. I glanced at my watch and stood there, telling myself it was early. She might not be out yet. But where else would she be? After all, she slept here. I stood there longer than I should have, listening. The water beneath the bridge moved slowly, quietly. Then I heard something, faint like a voice. I turned my head in its direction, then followed it cautiously down toward the riverbank. As I walked, the ground became uneven, damp. I paused a few more times, listening closely, but I didn't hear the sound again. I almost turned around and left. But then I saw a dark shape out in the distance shift. It didn't look right. I took a few more steps towards it, and that's when I saw what it was. Someone was in the water. I rushed closer, and that's when I saw her, turning in the current as it washed over her face. I opened my phone torch and pointed it at her. It was the same homeless girl from under the bridge. She was tied up and barely moving. I waded in without thinking. The water soaked through my shoes instantly as I grabbed her and slipped my arm under her shoulder. I lifted her out of the water. She was slippery and cold. There was blood on her arms and down the front of her shirt. Her eyes flickered open as I pulled her out, dragging her onto the bank. Then her eyes widened and her hand grabbed my shirt. Weakly but urgently, I realized she was looking behind me. Then footsteps. I reacted before I could even think. I didn't even stop to look. As I pulled the gun out, turned and fired. The sound was deafening, cutting through the silence. Something hit the ground in the distance before I fully saw it. My heart racing, I swallowed and approached closer, both hands on the gun. A tall man lay twitching on the damp ground. I pointed my phone torch at him. He was dressed in black, mask over his face, gun in his hand. If she hadn't warned me, I would have been dead. As I looked into his eyes, the realization dawned on me. This was him, the one using her, making her sit there day after day, pulling people in. When she looked at me like that, she hadn't been begging. She'd been trying to warn me, and he must have found out about the note. I felt sick. Rage flooded in so fast it drowned everything else. I aimed at his head and fired. He stopped moving instantly, but I fired again and again. I lost count. Each shot was louder than the last, splitting through the silence in the dark. I kept firing after it stopped being self-defense. Consequences be damned. It took me a few seconds to catch my breath after the last shot. Then I rushed back towards the water. By the time I got back to her, she wasn't responsive. I dropped to my knees beside her and lifted her. "Hey, stay with me," I said, my voice breaking. "You're okay. You'll be okay." There was no reaction. I pressed my fingers to her neck, feeling for anything. "Come on," I muttered under my breath. I pulled out my phone and called an ambulance, trying to keep my voice steady as I explained the situation. Every second felt stretched thin. "It's okay," I told her. "You're safe now." But I didn't know if she could even hear me. And as I said it, I could feel a sinking feeling in my chest. The paramedics tried. They worked on her right there by the water as I stood back watching them, but it didn't take long. She was pronounced dead on arrival. I still walk that route sometimes. Not because I have to, but because I can't stop thinking about it. I feel eyes on me every time I go back to that place under the bridge. Half the time, I expect someone to step out of the shadows and come at me. I'm always ready for it now. I walk through it slowly, tense, waiting, listening for the smallest sound. But nothing ever since. People walk through it like nothing ever happened, just like every other part of the city. Most people never even noticed her. But now, some of them noticed the flowers I left where she used to sit.